The Gresham Historical Society is preserving the past for the future. We welcome your interest and support. You may call us at 665-1964.
Hello, and welcome to I Remember When, sponsored by the Gresham Historical Society. I'm Gwenda McCall. This evening we have a visitor who can remember Gresham before electricity. She came with her family to Gresham in 1912. Her name is Marion Hoss. And a little later in the program we'll have two lovely flapper models showing authentic 1920s costumes. But right now I'd like you to meet Marion Hoss. Marion, thank you for joining us this evening.
I don't know whether I'm glad to be here or not.
Oh, Marion, we'll have a good time.
Get something going.
And I know that you have some interesting stories to share with our audience. Let's go a little bit farther back in your past, though. We'll start with your mother and father. Now, they came from Sweden in the late 1800s. Now, under what conditions did your mother come here?
Well, there were too many girls in the family, and so somebody had to get out. And my mother, and of course everyone, young people there, wanted to get to America. That was the land of plenty. And it wasn't too bad at that time either. But then my mother was the oldest, and so she managed to get money enough to get across. Mm-hmm. And she, all the work they could do, they knew they had to get jobs. And all the work they could do was housework. And so then she got a job all right. Then the next sister, younger, my mother would send her money to get over. Mm-hmm. And she got her, found sure that she had a job when she got here. And that's the way it went. And of course, when my father came, it was a little bit different. He was a foster child. Nobody knew what happened to his folks. And but he was only 4 years old. And he was this one foster home they put him in was a terrible place, and they had just one big bowl of soup in the middle of the table for 10 kids or something, and Dad figured he was going to have plenty, so he spit into it.
He spit in the soup?
He spit in the soup.
So no one else would want to eat it?
That's right. And I think he probably got spanked within an inch of his life. And but then he got into a nice home of a very kind man. He was 11 then, mm-hmm. and he was a tailor. Oh. So this man took in the kids about that age, and they could help him, and he taught them. So Dad was a full-fledged tailor when he came to America.
Hmm. And then your parents met in Duluth.
Well, I don't know too much about that end of it, but they did get married.
They did get married.
And I have
Duluth.
my father's citizenship paper.
Oh, really?
And at that year that he took out his citizenship paper, my mother, when she married him, instantly became a citizen.
Oh, okay. Now we have a photograph of them on their wedding day, mm-hmm. 1898. Mm-hmm. And at this time she was helping to be a housekeeper, mm-hmm. and he was a tailor. Mm-hmm. Right. And then he had a tailor shop right in Duluth.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And this is a photograph of the front of the tailor shop. Mm-hmm. And what are some of the things that we see in this picture?
Well, they're just like here are shelves of materials.
Mm-hmm. Samples of materials.
Samples mm-hmm. of materials. And then these are the men who worked for him in the back of the tailor shop. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you notice, all the men wore homemade suits, handmade, I mean, because you couldn't buy anything ready-made.
That's the best kind now.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And I noticed a telephone on this old roll-top desk.
Yeah, that was where I got in trouble.
Were you about 3 or 4?
No, I was Oh no, I was about 6 or 7 or something like that. And telephones was certainly intriguing because little kids never had a telephone, that's all.
So you'd go over and mess with Daddy's telephone right in the shop.
Right in the shop.
Oh boy. Now there's a picture here of the back of the shop. And I noticed that 2 of the tailors are actually sitting in Indian style right on the tables doing the handwork.
That was the real way to sit when you're doing anything with your legs crossed. Yeah, and that was the back. That was the working room.
And then the treadle sewing machines.
Yeah.
But they did have electric lights, it looks like.
Oh yeah, but that was different than here too.
Of course, that's farther east and a bigger downtown area. Now I'd like to share a photo of you as a little baby with your older sister. Here you are, a little cutie.
Yeah, and weighed 11 pounds when I was born, so that's the reason.
You weren't so little, 11
so little.
pounds. Your poor little mother. Now you did travel to Gresham in 1912. Do you want to tell us the circumstances behind that, Marion?
Well, this is what I had in mind anyway, that I thought. See, I had a baby brother born that of course, I was young enough that I didn't know anything about it. And he lived just 48 hours, which made it pretty bad because there were the 2 girls. And I think the folks felt they wanted to get my mom out of town on account of that. So they came out here then in 1912.
Nowadays, we'd probably consider that a sudden infant death syndrome.
Well, I guess so. They didn't, no, I don't know that they even tried to find out.
So your family...
he was deformed, that's right. He was kind of deformed, not badly, but he just didn't have any rectum and things like that.
Sad. Oh gosh, so your mother was so upset that your daddy said, let's take a trip.
I think that was the whole reason.
Oh, so you came to Gresham.
Yeah.
And
well, we visited relatives all along the way.
Oh, fun. And how did you come? What?
On the train.
Oh, the train. All right.
Oh, I was sure that we stopped at night in Missoula, and I was just positive there were Indians all over the place.
Oh,
because
really?
You could hear some, it sounded like howling stuff, and I just big enough and old enough to know that there were nothing but Indians in the West, see. But there weren't any.
Now, by the time you hit Tacoma, you want to tell us?
That was Spokane.
Oh, Spokane.
We had relatives.
Spokane.
Yeah, and Dad took us downtown, had our pictures taken. He was always willing to have a little fun.
And this is you on the left with your dad and your older sister. And then at that same time, your dad and mother had their picture taken. Look at that hat. And I bet that clothing didn't have any polyester and you had to iron it all the time.
I guess so. I wasn't doing the ironing then.
All right, and so you came to Gresham, and then why did you end up staying here? How did that all work out? You just came for a visit.
Yes, we did. I don't know how we happened to stay. Well, it was the weather. It was the weather. Dad says, this is the place to live. And they changed their minds and stayed.
They just figured this was God's country.
It was April. It was April, and it was a early spring, and you know, we just don't have early springs.
He'd had enough snow. All right, and this is the home that you settled in. Do you want to tell us about where it is and a little bit about the home?
Well, it's just 2 blocks from where I'm living right now in the nursing home, out in the country. It was a little 3 miles east of Gresham, really.
On Powell Valley Road?
Yeah, on Powell Valley Road.
And it's only a block from this 282nd Avenue.
Yeah.
So it's almost up to the end of Powell Valley Road. And the home is still standing.
Oh, yes.
I drove by it the other day and copied down the address. It's 5733 for any of our audience who'd like to go by and see Marion Hoss's old home. It's still standing there. Now, I would like to ask you a few questions about what it was like growing up in Gresham and living in a farm home that didn't have any electricity. First of all, do you remember when electricity came to town?
That I don't remember, but it was really something. First place, they got the houses all wired, and then they turned on the electricity. But then the funny part of it was they didn't have the meters put in. So we had electricity free for some time.
Oh,
so that was all right.
That was great.
Yeah.
Now, did you have chores? The little girl, when you came here, you were 8 years old. Did you have chores growing up on Powell Valley Road?
Oh, yeah. Every kid that I had to do all the dishes. And we had a cream separator because we had a couple of cows. And Dad was away with a sawmill up in Underwood, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And they would come home, he and his partner, come home on Saturday nights, walk from Troutdale, the 4 miles home, and Sunday night they'd go back, walk that.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And I had to help Mom with the cows and the chickens and stuff like that.
And you had kerosene lamps
Oh yes, kerosene lamps.
that smoked.
And I had to wash all those cockeyed windows.
Chimneys? The
Chimneys.
chimneys. Oh, that would be a terrible job.
Yeah, and the cream separator. I also had to wash that. And that was, my mother was very, very fussy because there was a thing, there was a lot of little bit of pieces of metal that you put the milk in and the cream came out, see, in 2 different ways. Well, I had to wash that thing too, twice a day.
Oh, twice a day?
Twice a day, every time we put cream and milk through there. Which, you know, cows gave milk twice a day.
Oh, no, I didn't know that, but thank you. Now I do. And did you have to help with the cows?
No, not much, because I wasn't hardly big enough to make a cow do what they were supposed to do. So I never learned to milk either. And I'd lay down in the next empty stall, have a little nap while Mom did the milking.
Did you have pasture right there around your home?
No, we didn't. We had, there was a lot of good grass alongside the road because there weren't any cars running around. And so I had to take the 2 cows, out on the road and let them graze on that good grass. And even if it was raining or anything, I'd put on Dad's big old coat, hat, climb up on the fence with a book or an apple or something, and the cows would they wouldn't go fast or anything. If they took a notion to go, then I had quite a time.
And you had to babysit the cows?
Every afternoon.
Now, what about running water? Did you have running water in your home?
Oh, no, no. We had a well, and our well was the best in the country because it never did go dry. They had the people who had the place before had a real nice little well house, as they called it, and that's where we put the perishables down into the cold water.
You'd lower them down
Lower them in a bucket.
In a
or
bucket.
like butter and milk.
And they'd stay cool down in the well.
Well, it was cold as heck down there.
Well, you mean you didn't have even an ice box in your house with the big bricks of ice?
No, not till way later.
Oh my goodness. Now, did you have a water pump in the kitchen where you pumped the water?
No, we went out and pulled it up out of the well and brought it into the house.
For dishes and everything?
Well, sure, that was perfectly clean water, wonderful stuff.
Did you ever get a water pump in the house? Oh my goodness, Marion. Okay. You have a funny story to share with us about a pig. Tell us about the pig.
I was hoping you'd tell that story.
No, you tell. It's a great story.
Well, we had a great big barn. They've taken it down just here lately. And down in the one corner of that barn was the little outhouse that I think most of you know about. And we had this great big pig in the one part of the barn. And what did he do but work under the barn and into this little outhouse? That great big, it was in the ground, it was, on top of the ground, but underneath the rest of it. And then he found he couldn't get out.
Now he was in the hole underneath the outhouse?
He was in the hole, under the house, under the...
How'd you find out he was down there?
Well, we screamed until bloody murder. If you ever been around a big pig of any kind and they get in trouble, they just scream bloody murder. And we didn't know, Mama and I were alone home. And one of the neighbors heard the screaming, and he even came down to see what was going on. There was no way to get that crazy pig out of there. But for some reason or other, he got himself turned around and back under the barn.
So he got himself out?
All by himself.
And I bet you filled in the hole fast.
I don't remember. We just were glad he got out of there.
Okay. How did you wash clothes?
On a board. On a board.
The washboard?
Washboard. Oh, yes, you bet.
Not even a wringer wash where it goes around?
No.
Hope
for a warm day when you could hang them out,
Yeah, really?
Yeah, that's true.
Did clothes shrink a lot in those days?
Oh, boy, I don't remember.
Because you'd think everything would be 100% natural fibers and everything would shrink.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay. I want to ask you a question now about the health care. When you were little, did you ever have any incidents that happened to your health?
No. I had the mumps once. Oh boy. And but then I had this iron that we used, and the handle came off, and it was one of those that put carbon in it.
Or charcoal?
Charcoal.
To keep it hot so you could iron.
Yeah. And then, like I said, the handle fell off and it landed on my foot. So they even had a doctor come up, and I got to sit in a big chair and do nothing.
Oh.
That was the best part.
Oh, golly.
Yeah, that was that.
And tell me a little bit now about going to school. What the schools were like out here.
Well, like this was in Duluth, but
oh, this one was in Duluth?
That was in Duluth, yeah. The schools were very good. They were regular, as good as anybody's, but they had good schools in Duluth. But when we came here, the high school in Gresham was right downtown, right down near our church. And we had to, my sister was just ready for high school, and she was going to have to pay tuition. We lived 3 miles out, see?
Oh.
She was going to have to pay tuition. And Dad couldn't see that at all, because in Duluth, nobody paid tuition or anything like that.
Public schools.
Public schools. And so he got busy and got all the little districts out, the grade school districts, got them all together, and they formed the Union High School District. And that made things better.
So the Gresham Union High School District, your dad helped form that so
Yes,
that
he
your
did.
sister could go to high school
Yeah.
for free. Oh, that's a marvelous bit of history.
Well, I thought it was pretty good of him to figure that out.
All right, this is a picture of you about graduation time, 1921.
Yes. that's
Now,
me.
the 19th Amendment was ratified in 1920. Do you remember anything about the women getting the vote? Or was it an exciting time in Gresham?
No, because I wasn't, you can see I wasn't too big myself, and I didn't understand too much about that.
Well, do you remember anything about the 1920, the flappers? The clothing being shorter or longer or straighter?
No, not much about that either. They didn't even have slacks.
Boy, Gresham was really the country then.
Yes, it was.
We definitely weren't the big city. And you were a shy country girl.
Right. Oh, yes.
Okay, right now I'd like to bring in our two lovely models. Our first model will be here, and this will remind us of the time of hip flasks and bathtub gin and speakeasies where you had to answer "Joe sent me" in the little door. And now our first model is Barbara Gibbs. Barbara is 5'2", and she does have eyes of blue. And she is all ready to go out for a drive with her beau and his Stutz Bearcat, in her cloche hat, salmon gauze-colored dress with a lace bodice and a separate jacket. She's wearing colored hose and gold shoes. And by the way, our two costumes this evening were loaned to us by B.J. Hale of Noblewood, and she has a lovely collection of authentic costumes from many eras. 23 skidoo, Barbara. Thank you very much. And Terry Floria is really putting on the Ritz tonight. I love my wife, but oh, you kid, huh? She's wearing an iridescent green sequin dress that's all hand-sewn with jet black beads, and the collar and little tie have black sequins. Notice the pointed hem, and she's really decked out from head to toe because she has a beaded headband and satin beaded shoes. And I like the bit about the cigarette holder too. She's ready to do the Charleston and the black bottom and dance the night away. Thank you, Terry. That was really fun. I'd like to take a little time now to talk about your husband's family. I have a recent photo here of the most recent photo that I have. Oops, I dropped one here. Of your husband. And I think many people in Gresham will remember Fred. He was a very prominent citizen and very well liked. And what occupation did he have right here?
Well, there's when he was at the high school as a mechanic and took care of the 11 school buses.
So the high school kids would remember him too.
Oh
then.
yes, a lot of them do.
Now, isn't it true that he was the only substitute bus driver?
I wouldn't say substitute.
But he did drive the buses too. So
Oh, he drove all the time, but they had a lot of other buses, you see, and he looked after them too.
Now, you did find among your husband's things this fascinating old envelope. Now, this isn't addressed to your husband. Go ahead and tell us about this.
Well, you see, I wasn't around when this
Was addressed.
No.
Yes, it says 1891.
1891. I wasn't in the world.
Right.
But this says, it says F.C. Hoss, and that's the way the F was spelled. Just looked like an F instead of that. And it was, then that was the last name, and then John was the other one.
That's your husband's
First name,
father.
yes. And then it says, I can't even see it without my glasses.
Without your glasses, let me read it for you, Marion. To Hoss John, the web-foot scrub. He is cutting cordwood for his grub in Portland, Oregon. And a 2-cent stamp, and I cannot imagine how that found him, but it did.
I just stuck it away because I thought it was pretty good.
I think it's fascinating, too. And now this picture is of his family. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this one?
Well, that house is still there, but this was his family are all gone. But this was his mother and father.
In the center too,
And then there was an uncle and an aunt that lived right next door.
Now tell us a little bit about where the house is, because some people are really interested in this
kind of thing. It's on a street, and I can't even remember the street number, the name.
But it's close to South Roberts.
Close to South Roberts.
Just a block or two over from there. And the house is still standing.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a picture that was also taken. Well, this is just about the time you came here. You came in 1912, and this picture was taken in about 1912. You want to tell us about this?
Well, that is down on Powell, and it's right close to Jenny Road, if people will remember that. And like I said, I don't know if I said it here or not, that Fred's father, to make a living, had horses, work horses, were the strong kind. And this day they were working on the Powell Valley Road. And this, you can see which is him right in there.
We'll have a close-up on him.
Yeah, aboard the horses.
And
they did road work. That was a real good job for any man. It was so long ago. See, Fred was probably a 17-year-old boy.
He looks young. That's a rocky old terrain, though. I didn't know Gresham was so rocky.
That's not as... It's rocky enough down there, and they were just graveling and starting the road.
So they're leveling it and grading it.
Yeah, regular road work.
With these wooden things pulled by horses. I wonder if that's Gresham Butte in the background there.
I think it is.
Which we
Because
call...
it was Jenny Road that they were working on, that went across Powell.
All right, and I'd like to ask you a little bit about how you met your husband. This is the picture of your husband about the time you met him. Okay.
I don't know.
Let's see, it's after high school, and you're working where?
Oh, I don't think I was, I think it was, no, that's right. I just met him because I was working in at Metzger's store. That was it. I was working in the office at Metzger's store, and he was driving for Standard Oil Company, and he brought Standard coal oil or something in there once a week or something like that.
Okay, I have a photo here of the Metzger store, and this probably is taken in 1918, but this probably is similar to the way it looked when you worked there. And what did you do there,
Well,
Marion?
I was in the office. I worked in the office in their first bookkeeping machine that came out, and nobody around town knew how to run the thing, so I had to go over and figure it out for myself, and then Walrad's got one the next year, and I had to go down over and teach her how to run it. It was a dealer, too.
And your husband was came into the store. What was he doing? What was
He was delivering kerosene.
Oh. And That's how you met.
Yeah.
That's romantic.
Oh, very.
And then he had a business, his own business,
He had a garage.
the Hoss Garage.
Yeah.
And this
That was
was
right down on Main Street. See, that's the fountain in the middle of the block there.
with the Statue of Liberty on
Yeah,
it, right
yeah.
on Powell and Main. This picture was taken in 1918. And these buildings are not standing here at
No,
all now.
no.
Tell us what's here now.
Well, I don't think there's anything, because that's the sidewalk and the park goes down behind it.
I think you're right. I think they took all the buildings
Yeah.
out.
Well, they were all getting pretty old. You
And-
know, needed to go down, because they had to be tacked up on something, because it went right down behind them.
Okay, Marion, we're getting a little short on time, but there
Okay.
is a picture or two I want to be sure and share, especially this large one because it's such a beautiful quality.
Yeah, I don't...
Oops, upside down. You tell us a little bit about this picture.
I really don't know what it is. It's a streetcar, that's for sure.
Well, I brought it out because I knew you remembered the streetcars.
Oh, yeah.
And these people are on their way to a picnic at Dodge Park.
Do you think this is that one? We ought to be in it, but then I've never seen that picture that I know of.
Well, this looks like it's some executives or people from a political group because they're all dressed up with boutonnieres and little ribbons and all. So, and the gals are dressed very fine for a picnic. People must have got more dressed up in those days.
Possibly.
But this is a beautiful photo. And then I have another smaller one. Why don't you tell us what this is?
Well, that undoubtedly is that Dodge Park trestle. It's not there anymore, I know that. And the streetcar that went up there,
Boy, that just looks so treacherous.
it wasn't very good either.
Now train to Dodge Park was opened in 1911 and closed in about 1930. So that was before my time too. I never got a chance to enjoy it. But Marion, I really have enjoyed having you as our guest tonight. I think your stories are so interesting, and I'm sure our audience
Well,
has too.
They were true.
They're true. That's the best kind. Thank you so much for joining us. In closing, I'd like to read you a small piece out of the Outlook of May 1987 that I really thought you'd enjoy. The communities such as East Multnomah County are rich in their own unique heritage, but they often lose sense of that past as they are overtaken by rapid growth and the promise of more to come. Let's not lose that sense of our heritage in East Multnomah County. If you're interested in getting involved with the Gresham Historical Society, please write to us at Box 65, Gresham, Oregon 97030. We'd love to have your input, and maybe you'd like to be a member. I'm Gwenda McCall. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on I Remember When.